What you're looking at is the first time I ever met Sonic the Hedgehog. In the bottom of magazines such as Electronic Gaming Monthly, you'd see like this is where he first appeared. Not this particular issue, but issues similar. This one's a few months old. You can see that in the bottom of EGM, we had kids before we had IGN.com and GameSpot and YouTube channels. We had magazines. We had Game Pro, SWAT Pro, Game Players Magazine, Electronic Gaming Monthly, different things. So you would see this banner at the bottom. I saw this thing, this blue thing would whiz by, and it says, "Who's the wise guy that hit pause? Sonic the Hedgehog is coming soon. He's the fastest video game you ever laid eyes on. He's only available on the 16-bit Sega Genesis system, all that stuff." So this is the first time I saw him, and I thought of Mickey Mouse and Felix the Cat, which was the influence of Sonic, and I knew, and I had my mom make me a felt Sonic the Hedgehog doll that I have somewhere. I can't prove it was made in 91, but I have it, and I definitely have the 93, 94 official Sonic doll that came out later. And what this is here is the Tricks of the Trade, Sonic the Hedgehog. This is the first time the Sonic game got a cheat, available cheat, because there was no IGN. This is not even, the internet was not even around for us to use. The World Wide Web, Netscape, not even here. But this was the first time you would see Sonic cheat codes for a Sonic the Hedgehog game. The first time you see anything like that. And look at this magazine. It's messed up, but you see there's previews of Sonic the Hedgehog. This is all we had, kids, magazines. This is all for Sonic the Hedgehog CD that I was able to make a board game out of using Monopoly, but got Metallic Madness, in which your friends are turned to robots. Here's Sonic Spinball. You can see that. I think Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, came out around the same time. Here's Game Gear. Here's more stuff. Here's more stuff. This is all. Well, this only goes for so long, but you get the idea. Another old advertisement, Sonic Spinball. Here's the first time you see him speeding around, like in the 91 advertisement. The first time we see Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine. And also, here's a toy from McDonald's. What's interesting about this little toy is that the wheels would keep it from falling off the edge of a table. So it would I've shown this before, but you turn the little handle. I reviewed Sonic the Hedgehog comic books on this channel before, and you would, for YouTube, it would be like going off the edge. It's interesting. And in this Dreamcast, I'm sorry, the EGM, this Electronic Gaming Monthly, this is a Dreamcast preview, and it says at the top, I don't know if we can get close enough to that, but we'll try. It says, let me see if I can actually get us to read it. This is a preview of a Japanese title that may or may not be released in the US. It's designed to run on the Japanese Dreamcast. So this is the first time we see Sonic in a Dreamcast game, a 3D Sonic. So this was the first time I bought Sonic the Hedgehog. First time that we see him in action on a 3D, besides Sonic R and Sonic the Fighters. My first exposure was the Dreamcast. I never bought a Sega Genesis. I bought a Super Nintendo, to be honest with you, so I'm not as hardcore as you might believe. But I followed the cartoons, Sat AM, and then, it wasn't until the GameCube that I was able to retro buy all the Sonic games, save for Sonic Shuffle, and put them on my GameCube. But the GameCube is the best retro system, the best defunct system to buy Sonic. All that had not too much to do with the movie itself. I went to go see it. Now, I'm showing this to you. When I show you my Sonic CD that I got years ago, we'll get into spoilers. But without spoiling too much, if you think of Blue Core Studios' Sonic the Hedgehog fan film that was about almost 20 minutes, you're pretty much knowing what to expect from this movie. There are some surprises at the beginning, and not too many surprises at the end, but only the promise of a sequel. But everything in here, there's nods to X-Men, there's nods to a certain restaurant, and it feels, overall, I was thinking not so much of Detective Pikachu or any other video game movie, I thought of Garfield movie. Do you remember Garfield? If you remember Garfield, the movie, it's a lot like that, but with a lot of action. So if you think of Garfield, the movie, the very first movie, with like, I don't know how to say it, some lighthearted Fast and Furious scenes, you pretty much have an idea of what Sonic the Hedgehog is, what you're going in for. Especially anybody in my True Force Loneliness group who are single dads, maybe want to take the kids out. It's good for kids up to 12, 13. This is not a vulgar movie. It's not really offensive. I'm trying to think of the only time. I'm thinking of another movie that I think it's the Despicable Me prequel that I'm questioning, but in which there's a nun as one of the villains. Why is there a Catholic nun as a villain in Despicable Me prequel? But anyway, that's not this movie. This is a good movie. So it's PG. A lot of the redesign was worth it. I just couldn't see. I mean, it's hard not to see that meow scene without thinking of the old design. So I'm going to give this an 8.5 out of 10. I liked it a little bit better than Birds of Prey or the Harley Quinn movie, but they're both pretty good. I mean, it's apples and oranges. You know, there's a lot of political groups trying to shut down one movie over another, but everybody can share. And I'll give you my thoughts of what could happen for the second movie, maybe coming up in 2022, after Sonic the Hedgehog's 30th birthday. This is also Sega's 60th birthday, since, I mean, even going back to the 1940s when they did slot machines and stuff like that. There's some references to games. There are some definite references to The Legend of Zelda, and I'm trying to think of another one. But The Legend of Zelda, and I'm trying to think of another reference that I'm thinking of. I can't think of it. But definitely X-Men, and you'll see the Flash. But there's some differences in the trailer from the final product, and we'll get into spoilers. So 8.5 out of 10. And now I'll switch over to my spoiler section. This thing here is now he's an old colleague of mine from school from 2003. We graduated in 2003, and he gave this to me about 12 years ago. This is Sonic CD. You go to a swap meet or you go to any store, you don't really see this. So this is a nice collector's item. I know I have my Sonic doll from the early 90s somewhere. I'll try to find it. And I have the old Sonic felt doll that my mom made on a sewing machine in 91. But this was months before the game. I had my mom made that Sonic doll before the game even came out, before the first game came out. Okay? So this is Sonic CD. This is complete. So we'll get into spoilers right now. So if you remember, if you watched, there's Zico the Dolphin, look at that. If you watched Blue Core Studios' Sonic fan film, you noticed a certain Echidna show up at the end. For this one, it was Tails. Now, it wasn't so fact, Tails, I expected Tails or Knuckles or Amy to show up somewhere, but I guess Tails, it had to be Tails because if you were making Sonic the Hedgehog 2, you would have, Sonic's kid sidekick, Tails. Now, you're not going to see the emeralds in this. That would probably be for the next one, because when we think of Sonic, we think of the 7 Chaos Emeralds to help him become Super Sonic. That's going to have to be the next one. I didn't hear the Super Sonic theme, I think, in this one. Maybe because older fans, I was 13 years old when Sonic the Hedgehog first was born. So yeah, I think the idea would have been misleading that Super Sonic would have been at the end, and he wasn't. So at the beginning of this, we're looking at baby Sonic, who was rescued. His parents, for whatever reason, are not there. For some strange reason, Ken Penders seems to still own Sonic's parents. I hope that fat bastard, renounces. I hope he dies somewhere and just, I know, of natural causes, okay? Because that man really ruined Sonic the Hedgehog comic books, Archie comics, and he tried to take everything back. He owned the Knuckles family, the whole Echidna family, which is strange right now because, Knuckles is supposed to be the only echidna, and that's true in the IDW comics and recent video games. We see sort of the Aztec Mayan Knuckles tribe infiltrate Baby Sonic and an owl. Now, the owl is like Zelda. It's a reference to Zelda, how in Zelda you had um, an owl always watching over Link, this big owl. Sometimes it happened in the one game, Link's Awakening, and then Ocarina of Time. So for Sonic, this giant owl is like Obi-Wan Kenobi, always watching over him, and had these rings. And the rings are portals. They're not Spaghetti-O rings like you would see in Sonic the Hedgehog Spaghetti-Os, but they were these rings that would take Sonic from one point to another, which he was trying. He had lost the rings in San Francisco when he was shot in the leg with the tranquilizer dart. But at the beginning of this, you see Knuckles, the echidna group of people. I said, oh, there's echidnas. There's other echidnas. It's not just Knuckles. But there is no Knuckles in this movie. So there's a whole other movie going on in the beginning of this first movie that you're just, what the fuck is this? So it's interesting to see how, we come about, we're dealing with something else because we're not looking at them again. We don't see the owl again. The owl sends Baby Sonic on his way. So there's a whole other story, a whole other movie that we're not going to see until for maybe 2 years. So he goes to the real world. He's left the sort of fantasy, weird geometric daisies and red goalposts and green checkerboard hills and the weird roller coaster tracks and everything. He's left for the real world, which is called Green Hill. Green Hills is like Smallville. It's a very small town. And you've got James Marsden as the sheriff. And it's very much like Garfield and John Arbuckle. He's like John Arbuckle. And so if John and Liz, if Liz was black, if John and Liz had a hedgehog instead of an orange cat, they're pretty much the same way. Very good couple. A lot of kid jokes. People have to go to the bathroom. They get stomach ulcers. They scratch their head. They're forgetful. It's a small town, so everybody can be a bit childish. Maybe they pick their nose. Maybe they're playing rubber bands or, making shadow puppets. I'm not saying that all happens in the movie, but you get the idea. They're very childish because it's a kid's movie. So nobody's swearing. There are tough guys in motorcycles at a motorcycle bar, but it's not to the point where it's like it's swearing or it gets really bloody or anything like that. No mention of alcohol so much. I think there's it's like more like a TGI Fridays that Sonic and James Marsden, the cop, goes to. So, let's see. So Sonic ends up in the real world. He's so lonely when he's playing baseball. Oh, that's the other thing too. The trailers show you Sonic's shoes, right? So it's got to be the shoes. So in the trailer, the shoes are always there, but Sonic has these beaten up shoes all the way through until like maybe the last reel and a half. I think it's an hour and a half long. I don't think it's that long of a movie. So he has beaten up shoes even when he's playing baseball, when he's running in the dryer or the washing machine, and he's got dirty shoes until the little girl, who is the sort of the niece of the wife. So you got the wife, you got her sister who wants her to divorce her husband, and the little kid who gives Sonic his shoes. I think they're like those kangaroo, I forget what they're called, but they're red and white high top shoes, and Sonic doesn't wear them until like near the end of the movie. But we start with the beginning. We start with the final battle and then rewind all the way backwards to show Sonic as baby Sonic in his elements, and then coming to the real world. But he's alone playing baseball by himself. That he causes a huge electromagnetic pulse that's unusual. The government gets involved, and they send Jim Carrey, Robotnik, to go investigate. And he's over the top. And you got Neil McDonough, who was what is it? Damien Dark in Arrow, small parts, and You got a snivelly sort of character, native sort of Indian type of guy, who's the sidekick. He's just dumb sidekick. He's like Otis to Lex Luthor, you know. And so Jim Carrey slowly, surely becomes the evil, fat Robotnik, or not fat, but just Robotnik. Everybody knows Dr. Eggman. I mean, if you look at Eggman, the other guy's performance, JD something in Blue Core Studios movie, he did it all right, but Jim Carrey's Jim Carrey, and he's got to play Eggman really over the top and comical, almost like what Mike Pollock does with Eggman as the voice in the cartoons that in the last 10 years for Sonic X and Sonic Boom. So you're getting a lot. You're getting a lot of like confrontation. It's over the top. There is some plot holes involving James Marsden, he's a sheriff playing around with his speed gun, measuring the speed. But he's labeled as a domestic terrorist because he's got a blue hedgehog. And it's all about Sonic's blue quills, his pointy quills, giving power to machines and stuff like that. So Eggman, of course, has one of these little blue quills, and he's able to power a machine and uses there's a final battle in Green Hills, but the next to final battle is in the city of San Francisco where he's flying about. It's a lot like the ending to the original Transformers movie. So if you combine some of the scenes in Transformers with Garfield the movie, this is Sonic. And it's not going to give you new territory, but it is interesting. So it's just what it really is setting up all these characters. And then when you get to Tails at the end, yeah, you're going to see more. This is what I would like to see. So 8.5, once again, this is what I'd like to see for a sequel. So we got to see Tails again. But Tails does not find Sonic right away. He's trying to find him, but he's not sure exactly where Sonic is. So he looks all over the place. So he goes to Green Hills, and it's more, you see scenes of Tails going and visiting the small town. Meanwhile, there's another villain in the midst. And so we got to have Mila Jovovich. Mila Jovovich would be the villain in this movie because I think it would make a lot of sense since she was in the longest running series for a video game adaptation. Sonic could bring back a revival of video game franchises since you can only run so much gas on superhero movies and Star Wars. This could be it. So to see Mila play a villain, but for a PG, for a kids movie, I can't see why she wouldn't do that. It'd be funny and it'd be interesting to see her to play like an enchantress or an evil witch, someone who does magic. But she probably comes from Mobius or whatever they call Sonic's home world. And this has to be the MacGuffin of the next movie, which you have to have the 7 emeralds. This must happen. We see the rings in the first movie, but we got to get to the emeralds in this next movie. This would allow him to become Super Sonic, and maybe towards the end of the movie, a big climatic, between Mila and Super Sonic. And I think it would force to have Sonic and Eggman to have this unholy alliance. If they're going to stop Mila, the evil enchantress, they have to work together. So that could work. I mean, you could see that, if you thought hard enough. But since we dealt with the echidnas at the beginning of the first movie, and since we got emeralds, we got to deal with Knuckles and the Master Emerald somehow. If Mila's character could steal parts of the Master Emerald, then you have Knuckles. But like I say, I would say Tails and Sonic would reunite. So you could have James Marsden and I forgot the wife, the one who plays the wife. And since Sonic is friends now, they're friends now. But what could happen is he could end up in the Mobius world, and Sonic would join him. Meanwhile, Tails is in the real world in Green Hills looking for Sonic. So it'd be interesting if you had how Tails would interact in the real world while all the other characters are in Sonic's world. But then there's a problem when the second villain of the second movie is trying to get control of the emeralds. So it's a weird plot, but I think it works. And we have to find out what happened to the owl. What happened to the mother owl? And while we're at it, let's just throw in Amy too. Amy Rose with the hammer. But thanks for watching. Go see the movie. Go see it twice. Take all the kids. It's their birthday.